r/entitled parents teens called me fat for fun, so I exposed their parents. Fat cow. Move for us. The cruel laughter echoed across the parking lot as I fumbled with my grocery bags, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped everything. Through my peripheral vision, I could see the phone cameras pointed at me like weapons, recording every second of my humiliation. Come on, do the walk. Waddle for TikTok, another voice called out. I kept my head down and walked faster toward my apartment building, but my legs felt like lead. 28 years old, and I was being tormented like some middle school outcast. The worst part? This wasn't the first time. Or the second. It had been happening for 3 months now, and each encounter left me feeling smaller and more worthless than the last. Don't ignore us, wail. We're trying to make you famous. The group of teenagers, maybe 5 or 6 of them, had positioned themselves near the entrance to my complex like predators waiting for prey. They knew my routine. They knew I got home from work around 6 p.m. every Tuesday and Thursday after grocery shopping. They turned my basic human need to buy food into their personal entertainment. My breathing became shallow as I approached the door. Just 20 more feet. 15. 10. Oh, she's running away. Quick, get the waddle on camera. The sound of sneakers slapping against pavement behind me made my heart race. They were following me. Again. I finally reached the security door and jabbed my key card against the reader with trembling fingers. Come on, come on. The light turned green and I yanked the door open, practically diving inside. Through the glass, I could see them laughing and reviewing their footage, probably deciding which cruel caption would get them the most likes. Next time wear something tighter, one of them shouted through the door. The people need to see what they're working with. I made it to the elevator and collapsed against the wall as the doors closed. The tears I'd been holding back finally came, hot and angry and full of 3 months' worth of accumulated shame. This had to stop. I couldn't keep living like this, planning my routes to avoid them, ordering groceries online when possible, basically becoming a prisoner in my own home because some bored teenagers thought my appearance was peak comedy content. In my apartment, I dropped the groceries by the door and sank onto my couch. My phone buzzed with a notification, and my stomach dropped. Please don't let it be. But it was. Someone had tagged me in a TikTok video. With shaking fingers, I opened the app and watched myself from an hour ago, hurrying across the parking lot while teenage voices provided cruel commentary. The caption read, when you're trying to help the local wildlife get exercise, skull cowface, #fatshaming, #comedy, #viral. It had already gotten 847 likes. The comments were even worse. Strangers from across the internet weighing in on my body, my clothes, my existence. Making jokes about my weight, suggesting I should thank the teens for motivating me, debating whether I was too fat to function. I stared at the screen until the words blurred together, and something inside me shifted. The sadness was still there, but underneath it, something harder was growing. Something that tasted like steel and determination. I screenshotted the video. Then I started scrolling through the profiles of everyone who'd commented and shared it. These kids had made one crucial mistake, they'd used their real accounts. Their full names were right there. And if they thought filming me was fun, they were about to learn what real consequences felt like. I spent the next 3 hours diving deeper into their digital lives than a private investigator. These kids had zero understanding of privacy settings, and their arrogance had made them sloppy. Every cruel video, every mocking post, every casual bit of harassment they'd ever posted was sitting there in the open like evidence in a filing cabinet. The ringleader was Madison Chen, 17 years old and a senior at Westfield High School. Her Instagram was a carefully curated collection of college prep achievements, honor roll certificates, volunteer work at animal shelters, and glowing recommendation letters from teachers she'd posted for motivation. The contrast between her public persona and the videos of her screaming fat cow at me was nauseating. Then there was Tyler Brennan, who worked part-time at his family's dental practice and had just gotten early admission to State University. His LinkedIn profile, because what 17-year-old doesn't have LinkedIn now, talked about his passion for community service and respect for all individuals. I bookmarked the video where he suggested I should roll instead of walk to save energy. The deeper I dug, the angrier I became. These weren't troubled kids acting out because of difficult home lives. They were privileged teenagers with bright futures who had decided that tormenting me was a fun way to spend their free time. They had college applications pending, jobs that required character references, parents who clearly believed they'd raised respectful human beings. I was building a comprehensive file on each of them when my phone rang. The caller ID made my chest tighten. It was my mom. Honey, Mrs. Rodriguez from downstairs called me. She said she saw some kids bothering you again? Mom's voice was carefully controlled, but I could hear the worry underneath. She wanted to make sure you were okay. Great. Now the entire building was witnessing my humiliation. I'd been hoping to handle this quietly, but apparently my shame had become neighborhood gossip. I'm fine, Mom. Just some teenagers being stupid. This has been going on for months, hasn't it? You've been making excuses about why you can't visit, why you don't want to go out anymore. I should have realized. The guilt in her voice made my throat tight. She was right, I had been isolating myself, turning down family dinners and social plans because I couldn't bear the thought of running into those kids. Or worse, having them film me with people I cared about and drag my family into their cruel entertainment. I'm handling it, I said, staring at Madison's honor roll certificate on my computer screen. By hiding in your apartment? Sweetheart, you need to call the police. This is harassment. I considered it, but what would I say? Some teenagers called me names and posted it online? They weren't touching me, weren't threatening violence. They were just being cruel. And somehow that felt too small and too enormous at the same time. The police won't do anything, Mom. They're minors, and technically they're not breaking any laws. Then call their parents. Call their school. This isn't okay, and someone needs to make it stop. After I hung up, her words echoed in my mind. Call their parents. Call their school. I looked back at my computer screen, at the mountain of evidence I'd collected. Madison's mother was tagged in dozens of photos, Dr. Patricia Chen, apparently some kind of surgeon based on her profile. Tyler's father owned that dental practice where Tyler worked, and had posted proudly about his son's college acceptance. These parents had no idea who their children really were. But they were about to find out. I opened a new document and began typing the first of several emails that would change everything. I crafted the first email to Dr. Patricia Chen with surgical precision, attaching 3 separate videos of her honor roll daughter calling me a fat whale and encouraging her friends to get the money shot of my humiliation. I included screenshots of Madison's college application essays about treating all people with dignity alongside timestamps showing when each cruel video was posted. But as my finger hovered over the send button, my phone buzzed with another notification. Another tag. Another video. This one was different, though. They'd escalated. The footage was from earlier today, but it wasn't from the parking lot. It was from inside the grocery store. They had followed me inside, filming through the aisles as I shopped, providing running commentary about everything I put in my cart. Oh look, she's going for the ice cream. Shocking development, people. Someone should do an intervention. This is just sad. Wait, get her reaching for the cookies on the top shelf. Comedy gold. My blood ran cold as I watched myself struggling to reach a box of crackers, completely unaware I was being filmed. The camera zoomed in on my body as I stretched, and the comments from viewers were even more vicious than usual. They had filmed me inside the store. Without my knowledge. For 30 minutes. I was shaking so hard I could barely hold my phone. This wasn't just harassment anymore, this felt like stalking. They had followed me, documented my private moments, turned my basic existence into content for strangers to mock. But the worst part came at the end of the video. As I was checking out, Madison's voice could be heard clearly. Same time Thursday, guys? I want to see if we can get her to cry on camera this week. They were planning this. Coordinating it. Making my harassment their regular social event. I sent Dr. Chen's email immediately. Then I started typing faster. Tyler's father's dental practice had a Facebook page with glowing reviews about their family values and commitment to treating every patient with respect. I posted the link to Tyler's videos in the comments, along with a detailed explanation of his behavior. Let's see how those family values held up when customers saw what kind of person they employed. Madison's college counselor was listed on the school website. I sent her copies of everything, along with a note explaining that I thought the admissions committees at the universities considering Madison might want to see what kind of character their prospective student really had. I found Tyler's volunteer coordinator at the local food bank where he'd been logging community service hours. Apparently helping feed the hungry while simultaneously mocking someone for their weight was the kind of irony that deserved special attention. But I was just getting started. The third kid I'd identified was Jessica Walsh, whose mother was running for city council on a platform of protecting families and promoting community values. Jessica's TikTok account had dozens of videos mocking not just me, but elderly people, disabled individuals, and anyone else she deemed weird enough to film. Her mother's campaign email was easy to find. I was deep in drafting my 4th email when my apartment buzzer rang. The sound made me freeze. Nobody visited me unannounced, especially not at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. I ignored it, but it rang again. And again. Finally, I pressed the intercom button with a trembling finger. Hello? Yeah, we know you're up there. Madison's voice crackled through the speaker, casual and confident. We need to talk. My stomach dropped into my shoes. They were here. At my building. At night. We saw you taking screenshots during our video today, another voice added. Tyler, I thought. That's pretty creepy, lady. We think you need to delete those. They had been watching me watch their videos. Monitoring my activity online. This had just become something much more serious than teenage bullying. I stared at the intercom like it might bite me. They were here. At my building. At night. The casual entitlement in their voices made my skin crawl, like they had every right to show up at my home and make demands. I'm not deleting anything, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. And you need to leave. Now. Madison's laugh crackled through the speaker. Or what? You'll call the cops? We're just kids having a conversation. Yeah, freedom of speech, Tyler added. We can stand on a public sidewalk if we want. Technically, they were right. The area outside my building wasn't private property. But something about this felt different, more threatening than their usual parking lot ambushes. The fact that they coordinated to come here together, at night, after realizing I was documenting their harassment, it felt like an escalation I wasn't prepared for. I moved to my window and peered down through the blinds. 5 of them stood clustered near the entrance, phones out, probably already filming. Madison was gesturing animatedly while the others laughed. They looked so normal. Like regular teenagers hanging out, not a harassment squad trying to intimidate someone into silence. My laptop chimed with a new notification. Then another. And another. Someone was commenting on every single post I'd ever made on social media. Going back years. The comments were all variations of the same theme, cow emojis, weight-related jokes, suggestions about diet plans. They'd found my Facebook, my Instagram, even my old Twitter account from college. They weren't just leaving messages on my posts, either. They were commenting on photos that included my friends and family. Pictures from my sister's wedding last year now had comments about how I was photobombing with my own gravitational pull. A post about my nephew's birthday party had been flooded with concerned messages about keeping junk food away from children. My hands were shaking as I tried to delete the comments as fast as they appeared, but there were too many. They brought reinforcements, accounts I didn't recognize were joining in, probably friends from school or followers from their TikTok videos. The buzzer rang again. This time it was 3 sharp bursts, deliberately aggressive. We're not leaving until you delete those screenshots. Madison's voice was sharper now, losing some of its fake sweetness. What you're doing is harassment. Taking pictures of minors without consent. The irony was so thick I almost laughed. They had been filming me without consent for months, but somehow me screenshotting their public posts was the real crime here. And we know you've been stalking our social media, Jessica's voice joined in. That's really weird behavior for an adult. Kind of perverted, actually. They were trying to flip the script, make me the predator in this situation. The scary adult woman targeting innocent teenagers. Never mind that they'd been the ones hunting me down for months, following me with cameras, turning my existence into entertainment. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, nice apartment building. What floor are you on? Cow. Then another, we have all night. Hope you don't have work tomorrow because this is going to be fun. And another, delete everything or this gets much worse for you. I screenshotted each message and added them to my growing evidence file, but my confidence was wavering. This wasn't just teenage pranks anymore. They were coordinating a campaign of intimidation, and they clearly didn't understand, or didn't care about, boundaries. The buzzer rang again, but this time it was followed by the sound of someone pressing multiple buttons, trying to get other tenants to buzz them in. I heard Mrs. Rodriguez's voice through the intercom, confused and annoyed about being woken up. They were bothering my neighbors now. Dragging innocent people into their vendetta. That's when I realized something that made my blood run cold. They knew where I lived, they had my phone number, and they demonstrated they were willing to escalate when challenged. I looked at the emails I drafted, still sitting in my outbox, and wondered if I'd just declared war on people who were much better at this game than I was. I was paralyzed, staring at my phone as more threatening messages flooded in, when I heard the sound that made my heart stop, the main entrance door opening downstairs. Someone had buzzed them in. Heavy footsteps echoed in the stairwell, along with loud voices and laughter that carried up through the thin walls. They weren't even trying to be quiet anymore. Other doors were opening. I could hear Mrs. Rodriguez arguing with someone, and Mr. Kim from 3B asking what was going on. My apartment was on the 4th floor, but they were coming up. I could track their progress by the complaints from neighbors and the slam of doors as residents retreated back into their homes. Floor 3, no fat lady here. Madison's voice echoed up the stairwell, sing-song and mocking. I grabbed my laptop and hit send on all the emails at once. If they were going to terrorize me in my own building, their parents and schools were going to know about it tonight. My finger jabbed the send button so hard I nearly cracked my screen. The footsteps reached the 4th floor. Oh, this has to be it. 4C, right? The security camera downstairs had a nice view of her waddling in. They had watched security footage. How was that even possible? My doorbell rang, followed immediately by pounding. Not knocking, pounding. Like they were trying to break it down. We know you're in there, and we know you just sent some emails. Tyler's voice was right outside my door now. That was a really stupid move. How could they possibly know about the emails? Unless. My blood turned to ice as I realized they might have been monitoring my online activity more closely than I thought. These weren't just random teenagers with phones. They were organized, tech-savvy, and they'd been planning this. Open the door or we start knocking on every apartment until someone complains loud enough to get you evicted, Madison called out. Your neighbors already hate the drama you're causing. I crept to my peephole and looked out. All 5 of them were there, crowding my narrow hallway like they owned the place. Madison was holding her phone up, recording everything. The others were going through what looked like printed screenshots of my social media, my emails, my entire digital life. We've got copies of everything you posted, everywhere you work, everyone you know, Jessica announced loudly enough for the whole floor to hear. Did you know your company has a really strict social media policy about employees who engage in online harassment? My job. They were threatening my job now. Pretty sure your boss would be interested to know you've been cyberstalking teenagers, Tyler added. We've already drafted the email. Very professional. Includes all the evidence of your inappropriate behavior. The pounding started again, harder this time. I heard Mrs. Rodriguez's door open. What is going on out here? It's 10 p.m. Her voice was sharp with exhaustion and annoyance. Sorry, ma'am, Madison's voice immediately shifted to sweet and apologetic. We're trying to return something to our friend, but she's not answering. We think she might be hurt or something. Well, she's clearly not answering for a reason. You kids need to leave before I call security. Of course, we totally understand. We're just worried about her, you know? She's been posting some really concerning stuff online lately. I listened in horror as Madison spun a completely fabricated story about being concerned for my mental health, about how I'd been sending them inappropriate messages and they were just trying to help. She sounded so sincere, so genuinely worried, that I almost believed her myself. Actually, Mrs. Rodriguez's voice was softer now. She has seemed different lately. More isolated. They were turning my own neighbors against me, using my months of withdrawal and depression as evidence that I was the unstable one in this situation. My laptop chimed with an email notification, and my stomach dropped as I saw the sender, my boss. The email from my boss was short and ominous. Need to speak with you first thing tomorrow morning. Some concerning allegations have been brought to my attention. Please be in my office at 8 a.m. sharp. They'd actually done it. While standing outside my door, they'd somehow managed to contact my workplace and spin their version of events fast enough to get my boss involved tonight. The pounding on my door had stopped, but I could still hear voices in the hallway. Madison was wrapping up her performance for Mrs. Rodriguez, her tone dripping with fake concern. We'll definitely give her some space, she was saying. But if you notice anything else worrying, maybe someone should do a wellness check? We're really worried about her mental state. I heard Mrs. Rodriguez's door close, and then Jessica's voice, much quieter now, phase 1 complete. She's not going anywhere tonight. Did you send the stuff to her work? Tyler asked. Already done. Used the anonymous tip form on their website. Very concerned citizen reporting inappropriate online behavior by an employee. Included all the screenshots of her stalking us. My hands were trembling as I realized the scope of what they'd planned. This wasn't a spontaneous intimidation visit. They'd prepared for this scenario, probably the moment they realized I was fighting back. They had counter strategies ready, evidence fabricated, stories coordinated. What about the landlord? Madison asked. Sent that too. Harassment of local minors, causing disturbances, making the building unsafe for families. I found the property management company online and sent it to their emergency line. They were systematically destroying every aspect of my stability. My job, my housing, my relationships with neighbors. And they were doing it while standing outside my door, casual as if they were discussing weekend plans. Should we do the college thing now? Jessica asked. No, say that. If she actually tries to fight the work thing, then we escalate. But I think she's getting the message. My laptop showed 3 more emails had come in while I'd been listening. One from my landlord's office requesting an urgent meeting about tenant complaints. Another from my apartment building's management company about violations of community guidelines. The third was from my own mother, confused because she'd received a Facebook message from concerned young people worried about my erratic online behavior. They'd contacted my mother. The rage that hit me was so pure and hot I actually saw spots. Going after my job was one thing. Threatening my housing was cruel but strategic. But dragging my family into this, making my mother worry about my mental health, using her love for me as another weapon, that crossed a line I didn't even know existed. I could hear them moving away from my door finally, their voices fading as they headed back toward the stairs. But Tyler's voice carried clearly in the hallway silence. Same time Thursday? This is way more fun than the parking lot thing. Definitely. But next time let's get her to come outside. I want to see her actually break down on camera. We could call in a noise complaint right before our usual filming time. Get the cops involved, make it look like she's the problem. Their footsteps disappeared down the stairwell, but their laughter echoed long after they'd gone. I sat in my dark apartment, surrounded by emails that could destroy my life, and realized I'd been thinking about this all wrong. I'd been treating this like a fair fight, like some kind of ethical battleground where evidence and truth mattered. But these kids weren't playing by any rules I understood. They were willing to lie, manipulate, and destroy without hesitation. They'd turned my attempt at accountability into a declaration of war, and they were fighting with weapons I didn't even know existed. The question now wasn't whether I could expose them. The question was whether I could survive what they'd do to me in return. I didn't sleep at all that night. Every sound in the hallway made me jump, every notification on my phone sent my heart racing. By 6 a.m., I was sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had gone cold hours ago, staring at the growing list of emails that had arrived overnight. My boss wanted to see me at 8 a.m. The property management company had scheduled a mandatory meeting for 10 a.m. My mother had called 3 times, increasingly frantic voicemails asking if I was okay and what these nice young people were talking about when they said I was struggling. But the worst email was from Westfield High School's principal, Dr. Martinez. Apparently, Madison and her friends had filed a formal complaint against me for stalking and harassment of minors. They'd included screenshots of me viewing their social media profiles, timestamps of when I'd visited their pages, and a statement claiming I'd been obsessively documenting their private lives for months. The email was professional but cold. We take allegations of adult harassment of our students very seriously. We've forwarded your information to our school resource officer and will be investigating this matter fully. Any attempt to contact our students directly will result in immediate involvement of law enforcement. They'd flipped the entire narrative. I was no longer the victim, I was the predator. A grown woman targeting innocent teenagers, screenshotting their photos, learning details about their lives. The fact that everything I'd collected was from their own public posts didn't seem to matter. They'd made it sound like I'd been lurking outside their houses with a camera. My phone rang, and I nearly jumped out of my skin. It was my sister, calling from California. Mom told me about some kids bothering you, she said without preamble. But then she got this weird message on Facebook about you stalking teenagers? What the hell is going on? I tried to explain, but even to my own ears it sounded insane. Yes, I'd been documenting their harassment. Yes, I'd looked up their parents and schools. Yes, I'd sent emails with their videos attached. When you stripped away the context, when you didn't know about months of parking lot ambushes and cruel TikToks, it did sound like the behavior of an unstable adult fixated on children. Jesus, Sarah, my sister said when I finished. Why didn't you just call the police months ago? Before it got this bad? Because they're minors. Because they weren't technically breaking any laws. Because I thought I could handle it myself. Well, now you can't. Now you look like the crazy one, and they look like victims. You need a lawyer. A lawyer. With what money? I was already struggling to pay rent on my salary, and if I lost my job this morning, I'd be looking at unemployment benefits and job hunting in a market that would probably include Google searches of my name. I had exactly 45 minutes to figure out how to save my career, my housing, and my reputation before walking into my boss's office. That's when I remembered something that made my blood run cold. The emails I'd sent to their parents last night. I'd been so panicked, so angry, that I'd rushed through them. I hadn't been careful about my language. I'd attached their cruel videos, yes, but I'd also included screenshots showing how I'd found their information. Screenshots that showed me going through their social media profiles, their friends lists, their family members' accounts. In my fury, I'd essentially provided a detailed confession of exactly the kind of stalking behavior they were now accusing me of. I grabbed my laptop and pulled up my sent folder, rereading the emails with fresh eyes. Oh God. To an outside observer, someone who hadn't lived through months of harassment, these emails looked unhinged. Obsessive. Like I'd spent hours combing through these teenagers' lives, collecting information about their families and schools and jobs. Which, technically, I had. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Hope you slept well. Don't forget to dress professionally for work today. First impressions matter when you're trying to keep your job. Cow. They were still watching. Still monitoring my every move. And in 6 hours, I'd be sitting across from my boss, trying to explain why I wasn't the unstable adult woman that every piece of evidence suggested I was. The meeting with my boss was even worse than I'd imagined. Mr. Henderson sat behind his desk with a printed folder thick enough to be a novel, his expression carefully neutral in that way that meant I was already dead in the water. HR Representative Janet Mills sat beside him, her laptop open and fingers poised to document everything I said. Sarah, we've received some very serious allegations about your conduct outside of work, Mr. Henderson began, sliding a printed email across the desk. Would you like to explain this? I recognized the anonymous tip form submission immediately. It was professionally written, probably by Madison based on the vocabulary, and painted a picture of an unstable employee who'd been cyberstalking local high school students and engaging in targeted harassment of minors. They'd included carefully cropped screenshots that made my evidence gathering look like obsessive behavior, and somehow they'd even found my work social media policy acknowledgement from when I was hired. These teenagers have been harassing me for months, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. They film me without consent, post cruel videos online, and... Are you saying you did collect personal information about minors? Janet interrupted, her fingers clicking across the keyboard. Screenshots, family details, school information? Yes, but only because. And you contacted their parents, schools, and employers without going through proper channels? I could see where this was headed. Every answer I gave that was truthful would sound like an admission of guilt. I was trying to make the harassment stop, I said weakly. Mr. Henderson opened the folder and pulled out more printouts. According to the complaint, these students attempted to have a civil conversation with you last night about your behavior, and you refused to engage. Instead, you've apparently escalated by sending what their parents are calling threatening communications. My mouth fell open. They came to my apartment building at 10 p.m. They were pounding on my door and threatening to get me evicted. Do you have evidence of these threats? Janet asked. I pulled out my phone to show them the text messages, but my hands were shaking so badly I could barely unlock the screen. When I finally pulled up the message thread, my heart sank. The texts were gone. All of them. The threatening messages, the cow emojis, everything had vanished like they'd never existed. They were here. The messages were right here. Mr. Henderson and Janet exchanged a look that told me everything I needed to know about how this was going to end. Sarah, I think you need to take some time off, Mr. Henderson said gently. This situation has clearly become overwhelming for you, and we're concerned about your judgment. You're firing me. We're placing you on administrative leave pending a full investigation. If these allegations prove unfounded, we'll discuss your return. But right now, we need to protect both you and the company. I walked out of that office in a daze, my work laptop and ID badge left behind on Henderson's desk. In the span of 12 hours, I'd gone from trying to stand up for myself to being treated like a dangerous person who couldn't be trusted around teenagers. My phone buzzed as I reached my car. A notification from TikTok, I'd been tagged in a new video. This one showed me walking out of my office building just now, the timestamp indicating they'd filmed it less than 5 minutes ago. The caption read, "Update, the stalker got fired. Party popper consequences for creepy adults who target kids. Hashtag justice, hashtag safety first." They'd been waiting outside my workplace. Watching for me to leave. Probably filming since I'd arrived this morning. And somehow, they'd already known I was going to lose my job. The TikTok video had over 2,000 likes in the 10 minutes since I'd left my office building. The comments were a mix of celebration and speculation about what I'd done to deserve being fired. Someone had even created a hashtag, #StalkerKaren. But what made my blood freeze wasn't the video itself, it was the metadata. The location tag showed they'd been positioned across the street from my office since 7 a.m. They'd been there before my meeting even started, waiting with cameras ready like they already knew the outcome. I sat in my car in the parking garage, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to process how they could have predicted this so precisely. Unless. My phone rang. Unknown number, but I was past caring about screening calls. "Congratulations on your newfound free time." Madison's voice was bright and cheerful, like she was calling to wish me happy birthday. "Now you can focus on getting the help you clearly need." "How did you know?" My voice came out as a croak. "Know what? That acting like a psycho stalker might have consequences?" "Pretty obvious, honestly." Her laugh was light, almost musical. "Adults are supposed to be smarter than this. You were filming me before the meeting. You knew I was going to be fired. We knew you were going to that meeting, sure. Your boss is friends with Tyler's dad on LinkedIn, they play golf together sometimes. Funny how small the world is." The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Tyler's father owned a dental practice. My boss had been complaining about his dentist bills just last week. They moved in the same social circles, probably belonged to the same country club. "Dr. Brennan showed your boss those emails you sent," Madison continued conversationally. "The ones where you detailed exactly how you'd been stalking his teenage son. Really thorough work, by the way. Most adults try to hide that kind of obsessive behavior." I closed my eyes, remembering the screenshots I'd included showing my research process. In my anger, I'd essentially provided a step-by-step guide to how I'd invaded their privacy. "Your boss was very concerned about the company's liability," she went on. "Having an employee who targets local kids? That's a lawsuit waiting to happen. Especially since Tyler's been doing volunteer work at the food bank your company sponsors. Every connection I'd missed, every relationship I hadn't considered, they'd mapped it all out and used it against me. This wasn't teenage pranks or random cruelty. This was strategic warfare, and I'd been fighting with toy weapons while they brought military-grade artillery." "What do you want?" I asked. "We want you to disappear," Madison said, her voice losing its false sweetness. "Delete your social media. Move somewhere else. Stop existing in our space. This is my home. My life. Was your life. But you made this weird, and now everyone knows what you really are. Check your email." The line went dead. With trembling fingers, I opened my email app and found a message from Westfield High School's resource officer. They were strongly recommending I attend a mandatory meeting about appropriate boundaries with minors and warning that any further contact with students would result in a restraining order. My landlord had sent an eviction notice. 30 days to vacate due to creating an unsafe environment for other tenants, particularly families with children. But the email that broke me completely was from my nephew's elementary school. Someone had called to express concerns about student safety related to my documented pattern of inappropriate interest in children. They were asking my sister to confirm that I wouldn't be attending his upcoming school play. They were erasing me from every corner of my life, turning my own family against me by twisting my victimhood into something predatory and dangerous. My phone buzzed with one final message from Madison, Thursday at 6 p.m., parking lot. "Come apologize on camera, admit you were wrong, and maybe this stops here. Don't show up, and we get creative." I had 72 hours to decide, complete public humiliation, or total destruction. I stared at that text message until the words blurred together. Thursday at 6 p.m. 3 days to decide between public humiliation and total destruction. But as I sat in that parking garage, something shifted inside me. The fear was still there, but underneath it was something harder. Something that had been building since the moment they dragged my family into this. They'd made one critical mistake, they'd gotten cocky. I drove home slowly, taking a route that avoided the usual spots where they might be waiting with cameras. My mind was clearer than it had been in months, probably because I'd hit rock bottom so hard there was nowhere left to fall. Sometimes losing everything gives you a strange kind of freedom. Back in my apartment, I opened my laptop and started working. Not frantically like before, but methodically. Carefully. If they wanted to play games, I was going to learn the rules. The first thing I did was recover those deleted text messages. They'd vanished from my phone, but my cloud backup was still intact. Screenshots of every threat, every cruel message, every piece of evidence they thought they'd erased. I'd been too panicked to check the right place before. Then I started digging deeper into their digital footprints, but this time I was smarter about it. Instead of just looking at their public posts, I traced their connections, their patterns, their mistakes. These kids thought they were tech-savvy, but they'd left breadcrumbs everywhere. Madison's anonymous tip to my workplace? The email address was linked to a Spotify account under her name. Tyler's concerned citizen report to my landlord came from an IP address registered to his family's dental practice. Jessica's Facebook message to my mother had been sent from an account that was linked to her Instagram, which was linked to her Venmo, which showed payments to the others with memo lines like Operation Fat Lady Phase 2. They'd documented their own conspiracy. But the real breakthrough came when I found their group chat screenshots. Jessica had posted them to her close friend's story on Instagram, probably thinking only their inner circle would see them. The timestamp showed they'd been planning this escalation for weeks, long before I'd ever fought back. Phase 1, basic harassment for content, read one message thread. Phase 2, if she fights back, destroy her credibility. Phase 3, complete social exile. They'd outlined exactly how they'd manipulate the narrative, which parents and authority figures to contact, even backup plans if their first attempts failed. Madison had written, adults never believe they can be outsmarted by teenagers. Use that. Most damning of all was Tyler's message. Dad says if we can document her as unstable, the company will have to fire her for liability reasons. Already laid the groundwork with the golf course conversations. This wasn't teenagers getting carried away with a prank. This was premeditated psychological warfare, planned and executed with the help of their parents' social connections. My phone rang, interrupting my research. It was my sister again. I talked to Mom, she said without preamble. Those kids called her again. They're saying you tried to contact them at school? I haven't contacted anyone. I haven't left my apartment since this morning. They have screenshots, Sarah, of you looking at the school's website, the staff directory. They sent them to Mom with a message about being afraid for their safety. I pulled up my browser history, confused, then felt my stomach drop. Someone had accessed my computer remotely. The search history showed visits to Westfield High School's website, the staff directory, even individual teacher profiles. Searches I'd never made, at times when I'd been at work. Sarah? Are you there? They hacked my computer, I whispered. They've been monitoring everything I do online, and now they're faking evidence. The silence on the other end told me how that sounded, like exactly what an unstable person would claim when caught. But I had proof now. Real proof. Screenshots of their planning, evidence of their hacking, documentation of their lies. The question was, would anyone believe me before they finished destroying my life? I spent the rest of Tuesday documenting everything I'd found, but every time I thought I had solid evidence, they seemed to stay one step ahead. When I tried to screenshot their group chat, the Instagram story had vanished. When I attempted to trace the fake browser history on my computer, the logs had been wiped clean. It was like fighting ghosts who could manipulate reality in real time. Wednesday morning brought a knock on my door that made my heart stop. Through the peephole, I saw a police officer standing in the hallway, looking bored and slightly annoyed. Ms. Chen, he called out. I'm Officer Rodriguez. Need to speak with you about a harassment complaint. My hand shook as I opened the door. This was it, they'd actually gotten law enforcement involved. Ma'am, I've got a report here about you contacting minors inappropriately, he said, consulting his notepad. The complainants say you've been showing up at their school, trying to get personal information from staff members. I've never been to their school, I said. I can prove it, I was at work yesterday, and I've been home since I got fired. Officer Rodriguez's expression shifted slightly. You were fired? When? Yesterday morning. But I have security footage from my building, timestamps on my key card, I can show you I haven't left except to go to work. He studied me for a moment, then flipped through his notepad. The complaint came in this morning. Said you were there yesterday afternoon around 2 p.m., asking teachers about specific students. Check the school's security cameras, I said desperately. I wasn't there. Something in his expression told me he was starting to question the story he'd been given. Ma'am, do you happen to have any proof of the harassment you mentioned when you filed the original complaint? I froze. What original complaint? Says here you filed a report about these same kids bothering you. 3 weeks ago. But then you called back and said it was a misunderstanding, that you'd overreacted. I never filed any report. And I definitely never called to retract anything. Officer Rodriguez frowned and flipped through more pages. Voice recording of the retraction call is right here. Sounds like you, according to the desk sergeant who took the original complaint. They'd impersonated me. Somehow, they'd gotten enough information to fake an official police report retraction. Which meant that when I thought about calling for help over the past few months, there was already a paper trail showing I was an unreliable complainant who made false accusations. Can I hear that recording? I asked. I'd have to request it from downtown, but... He paused, studying my face. Ma'am, are you alright? You look like you haven't slept in days. I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror and winced. He was right, I looked terrible. Exhausted, paranoid, exactly like someone who might make up stories about teenage conspiracies. Officer Rodriguez, I said carefully, what if I told you I have evidence that these kids have been planning this harassment campaign for weeks? That they've been coordinating with their parents to destroy my reputation systematically? He looked skeptical. What kind of evidence? I showed him my phone, pulling up the screenshots I'd managed to save before they disappeared. But when I opened the folder, it was empty. Every single screenshot, every piece of proof I gathered, was gone. They were here, I whispered, staring at my phone in disbelief. All of it was right here. Officer Rodriguez closed his notepad with a sigh. Ma'am, I'm going to strongly suggest you speak with someone. A counselor, maybe. This situation seems to be causing you a lot of stress. After he left, I sat on my couch staring at my empty phone, trying to understand how they kept erasing evidence faster than I could collect it. They weren't just tech-savvy teenagers, they had resources, help, access to things that should have been impossible. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison, looking forward to tomorrow night. Don't forget, 6 p.m. sharp. And Sarah? Bring tissues. You're going to need them. 24 hours until their deadline, and I still had nothing that could save me. I stared at Madison's text until my eyes burned, then something occurred to me that should have been obvious from the beginning. If they could hack my computer and delete my evidence remotely, they'd probably been monitoring everything I did online for weeks. Every search, every screenshot, every plan I'd made, they'd seen it all in real time. But that also meant they might have gotten overconfident. I grabbed a notebook and pen, actual paper, nothing digital they could access, and started writing down everything I could remember. Then I did something I should have done months ago. I called my college roommate Jessica, who worked in cybersecurity. Sarah. God, it's been forever. How are you? Jess, I need help. Someone's been hacking my devices and I don't know how to stop it. The cheerfulness in her voice immediately shifted to professional concern. Tell me everything. And do it from a phone they haven't had access to. I explained the situation from Mrs. Rodriguez's landline, using the notes I'd written by hand. Jess listened without interrupting, and when I finished, there was a long pause. Sarah, what you're describing isn't teenage hacker stuff. This is sophisticated. Remote access to your devices, coordinated social engineering, real-time evidence deletion, someone's helping them. What do you mean? I mean these kids have an adult with serious technical skills backing them up. Probably someone who works in IT security or digital forensics. The level of access they have to your devices, the way they're staying ahead of your documentation efforts, that takes professional-grade tools. My blood ran cold. So there's nothing I can do? I didn't say that. But first, you need to assume everything you own is compromised. Your phone, laptop, even your smart TV if you have one. Don't use any of it for anything sensitive. I thought about Tyler's father, the dentist. About Madison's mother, Dr. Chen. About all their parents' professional networks and social connections. Jess, if someone wanted to hire that kind of help, how much would it cost? For what they're doing? Maybe a few $1,000s. Pocket change for professional parents who want to protect their kids from consequences. The pieces were clicking together. This wasn't just teenage bullying that had escalated, this was a coordinated campaign by parents who decided to destroy me rather than discipline their children. Can you help me prove it? Maybe. But Sarah, if these people have those kinds of resources, fighting back could make things much worse for you. They're not playing games. After hanging up with Jess, I sat in Mrs. Rodriguez's kitchen feeling more trapped than ever. Even my college friend, someone who specialized in cybersecurity, was warning me that I was outgunned. Mrs. Rodriguez shuffled in wearing her bathrobe, looking concerned. Mija, you look terrible. What's happening with those kids? I started to give her the usual dismissive response, but something in her expression stopped me. She'd lived in this building for 30 years, had raised 4 kids, dealt with every kind of neighborhood drama imaginable. They're trying to destroy my life, I said simply. And they're winning. She poured herself coffee and sat across from me. You know what I told my boys when bullies went after them? Fight dirty or don't fight at all. These kids want to play games? Maybe it's time to change the rules. What do you mean? I mean tomorrow night when you meet them in that parking lot, maybe you shouldn't go alone. Maybe you should bring some friends who know how to handle punks with cameras. I looked at this 70-year-old woman who just suggested I bring backup to a confrontation with teenagers, and realized she might be the first person who actually understood what I was dealing with. Mrs. Rodriguez, what if I told you I think their parents are helping them? She snorted. Mija, rich parents protecting their precious babies from consequences? That's not a conspiracy, that's Tuesday. Mrs. Rodriguez's words echoed in my mind as I walked back to my apartment. Fight dirty or don't fight at all. But what did fighting dirty even mean when your opponents had unlimited resources and no moral boundaries? I was so lost in thought that I almost missed the figure sitting in the hallway outside my door. When I looked up, my heart nearly stopped. It was Dr. Patricia Chen, Madison's mother. She stood as I approached, her expression carefully composed in that way that meant she was curious but trying to hide it. Designer handbag clutched in manicured hands, perfect makeup despite it being nearly 9 p.m. on a Wednesday night. Miss Sarah, she said, her voice crisp and professional. I think we need to have a conversation. Every instinct told me to run, but there was nowhere to go. This was my hallway, my home, and she was blocking my door like she owned the place. Dr. Chen, I managed, surprised my voice stayed steady. I wasn't expecting you. I'm sure you weren't. She stepped closer, and I caught the faint scent of expensive perfume mixed with something sharper, stress sweat, maybe. Even she wasn't as calm as she appeared. But after the emails you sent, after the harassment of my daughter and her friends, I felt a face-to-face discussion was necessary. Harassment? The word came out louder than I'd intended. Your daughter has been tormenting me for months. Dr. Chen's perfectly controlled expression cracked slightly. My daughter is a 17-year-old honor student who made the mistake of trying to help someone who clearly needs professional intervention. The gaslighting was so smooth, so confident, that for a second I actually questioned my own memories. Had I misunderstood everything? Was I the unstable one in this situation? Then I remembered the videos. The cruel laughter. The systematic campaign to destroy my life. Help me? I said. By following me with cameras? By calling me a fat cow for TikTok content? Madison showed me those videos, Dr. Chen replied without missing a beat. What I saw was teenagers trying to encourage someone to make healthier choices. Perhaps their methods were immature, but their intentions were good. She'd watched her daughter mock and humiliate me, and somehow convinced herself it was an intervention. The level of delusion was staggering. They got me fired from my job, I said. No, your own actions got you fired. When you decided to stalk minors online and send threatening communications to their families. Dr. Chen reached into her purse and pulled out a thick folder. Would you like to see the evidence we've compiled? My hands trembled as she opened the folder. Inside were printed screenshots that made my blood turn cold. Photos of my apartment building with timestamps. Pictures of my car in various parking lots around town. Images of me grocery shopping, walking to work, sitting in my doctor's waiting room. They'd been stalking me. For weeks, maybe months, documenting my every movement while accusing me of harassment. This is what real stalking looks like, Dr. Chin said calmly. But don't worry, we're not filing charges. Yet. Madison's deadline still stands. Tomorrow at 6 p.m., you apologize publicly for your behavior, and this ends quietly. Refuse, and every authority figure in your life sees this documentation. I stared at photos of myself in places I thought were safe, taken by people I'd never noticed. How long have you been watching me? Long enough to know you're unstable. Long enough to protect our children from whatever this obsession is. She closed the folder and tucked it back in her purse. Madison was right about you from the beginning. You're exactly the kind of person who targets successful young people out of jealousy. They targeted me first. Prove it, Dr. Chin said simply. Show me one piece of evidence that my daughter initiated contact with you. One video or message or witness that supports your version of events. The challenge hung in the air between us because we both knew I couldn't do it. They'd been careful from the beginning, smart about angles and timing and plausible deniability. And anything I might have saved had been systematically deleted. 24 hours, Miss Sarah. After that, things get much worse for you. Dr. Chin turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and don't think about running. Madison's already been accepted to universities in 5 different states. We have connections everywhere. As her heels clicked down the hallway, I realized this had never been about teenage bullying at all. This was about power, and I'd never had any to begin with. I stood outside my door for 10 minutes after Dr. Chen left, key in hand, unable to move. The folder of surveillance photos kept flashing through my mind. How many times had they been watching without me knowing? How many innocent moments had they weaponized into evidence of my instability? Inside my apartment, I grabbed the burner phone Jess had told me to buy and called her back. They have professional surveillance photos of me, I said without preamble. Going back weeks. This isn't just parents protecting their kids, this is something bigger. Send me everything you can remember about the technical stuff, Jess said. I'm going to make some calls. And Sarah? Don't use your real devices for anything tonight. If they're watching this closely, they'll know you're planning something. After we hung up, I sat in my dark living room trying to piece together a timeline. When had the surveillance started? Before I fought back, or after? Had they been documenting me from the very beginning, planning for the moment I might resist? A soft knock at my door made me freeze. It was almost 11 p.m., too late for neighbors, too early for emergencies. I crept to the peephole and saw Mrs. Rodriguez holding a manila envelope. Mija, I found something you need to see, she whispered when I opened the door. She handed me the envelope and glanced nervously down the hallway. That woman who was here earlier? Dr. Chen? She's been in the building before. 2 weeks ago, she was asking questions about you at the front desk. Told the day security guard she was concerned about a troubled woman who might be bothering her daughter. My stomach dropped. 2 weeks ago? But that was before. Before you sent any emails, before you fought back, before any of this escalated, Mrs. Rodriguez finished. She was already building a case against you. Inside the envelope were photocopied security logs from the front desk, showing Dr. Chen's visits to the building. 3 separate occasions over the past month, each time speaking with different staff members about safety concerns regarding me. She was poisoning the well, I whispered, staring at the dates. Making sure everyone would already think I was unstable before I even tried to defend myself. Mrs. Rodriguez nodded grimly. That's not all. My nephew works for the property management company. Says they got multiple complaints about you from concerned neighbors, but when he checked, half the apartment numbers don't exist. Someone was calling in fake complaints using made-up identities. The scope of the setup was breathtaking. They hadn't just reacted to my resistance, they'd been laying groundwork for my destruction from the very beginning. Every authority figure, every potential ally, every support system had been systematically compromised before I'd even known I was under attack. There's something else, Mrs. Rodriguez said quietly. The security cameras in our parking lot? They'd been malfunctioning for 3 weeks. Always during the times when you said those kids were bothering you. The repair company keeps saying they'll fix them, but they never do, I finished. Because someone doesn't want footage of what really happened. My phone buzzed with a message from the burner number Jess was using. Found something. Not good. Can you get somewhere safe tomorrow before 6 p.m.? Somewhere with lots of witnesses and security cameras that work? The final pieces were clicking into place, and I realized tomorrow's apology wasn't meant to end this. It was meant to be the final scene in a carefully orchestrated destruction, probably filmed for evidence of my unhinged behavior that would justify whatever came next. They'd spent weeks building the perfect trap, and I'd been walking toward it the entire time. But now I knew something they didn't think I could figure out. This had never been about me at all. This was about what happened when someone finally fought back against people who were used to being untouchable. And tomorrow night, I was going to show them what real consequences looked like. I spent Thursday preparing like I was going to war, because in many ways, I was. Jess had worked through the night with some contacts in law enforcement cybercrime units. What she'd found was staggering, a digital forensics company that specialized in reputation management for wealthy families, basically professional bullies who destroyed people who threatened their clients' children. The Chan and Brennan families had hired them the moment their kids' harassment videos started getting reported. But they'd made one crucial mistake, everything they'd done was illegal. The hacking, the surveillance, the evidence tampering, it was all felony-level computer crimes with clear digital fingerprints. At 5:30 p.m., I walked into the parking lot carrying a small bag and wearing a wire provided by Detective Morrison from the cybercrime unit. They'd been investigating the digital forensics company for months, and my case was exactly the evidence they needed. Madison and her friends were already there, positioned perfectly for dramatic lighting, cameras ready. Dr. Chin sat in her BMW nearby, probably ready to document my breakdown for her files. Look who actually showed up. Madison called out as I approached. Ready to apologize for being a crazy stalker? I'm ready to apologize, I said loudly enough for the hidden microphones to pick up clearly. But first, I have something for you. I reached into my bag and pulled out a thick folder, not the evidence they'd been erasing, but something much better. Court documents. What's this? Madison's confidence flickered as I handed her the papers. Restraining orders, I said. Against all of you, and your parents, and the cybersecurity company they hired to destroy my life. Federal charges for computer fraud, harassment, and conspiracy. Dr. Chen's car door slammed as she rushed over. This is ridiculous. You have no evidence. Actually, we do. Detective Morrison stepped out from behind a parked car, badge visible, recording equipment in hand. Everything you just said is being documented, Dr. Chen. Including your daughter's admission to harassment on camera. The kids' phones started buzzing simultaneously, their parents getting calls from FBI agents executing search warrants on their digital forensics company. The systematic deletion of evidence from my devices had left digital traces that led straight back to the source. This is insane. Tyler shouted. We're just kids. We were just having fun. Fun? I looked at each of them, these teenagers who tried to destroy my life for entertainment. You cost me my job, my home, my relationships with family. You coordinated with your parents to gaslight me into thinking I was crazy. You hired professionals to hack my devices and forge evidence. Madison was crying now, the confident mask completely gone. We didn't mean for it to go this far. Yes, you did. My voice was steady, calm, all the power finally flowing in the right direction. You planned every step. But you made one mistake, you forgot that when you systematically destroy someone's life, they have nothing left to lose. Dr. Chen was frantically trying to call someone on her phone, probably lawyers, but Detective Morrison was already reading her rights. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new apartment across town, paid for with the settlement money from the civil lawsuit, watching the local news report on the sentencing. Madison and Tyler had gotten community service and probation, but their college acceptances had been revoked. Their parents faced federal charges and massive legal bills. The cybersecurity company was shut down, its executives facing years in prison. My phone buzzed with a text from my nephew, Aunt Sarah. Mom says you're coming to my birthday party. Can you bring the good cake? I smiled, looking out at a parking lot where no one was waiting to film me, where I could exist without fear or shame. On my way, I texted back. Some battles are worth fighting, even when they nearly destroy you. Especially then.